"You're not welcome at Christmas," my mom said over the phone. "Your lifestyle is an embarrassment." I simply replied, "Okay," and hung up. Then I stopped every monthly payment I'd quietly been covering for the family. She started calling back nonstop. I, 32M, stared at my phone screen long after the call ended, Mom's words still echoing in my head. The lifestyle comment wasn't new. She'd been making pointed remarks for 2 years now, ever since I'd introduced them to my boyfriend. But being uninvited from Christmas, from the family gathering I'd helped fund for the past 6 years, that was a new low. I sat in my downtown apartment, the city lights stretching out before me through floor-to-ceiling windows. The place was modest by tech executive standards, but comfortable. I'd worked my way up from a help desk position to director of operations, and the salary reflected that journey. What my family didn't know was exactly how much I'd been quietly shouldering for them. The thing about being good with numbers is that you start seeing patterns everywhere. My parents' mortgage had been 3 months from foreclosure when I'd stepped in 4 years ago. I'd refinanced it under my name, taking on the $2,800 monthly payment without telling them. They thought their bank had given them a modification. My sister's car payments, for $150 a month, had been coming from my account for 2 years after she'd lost her job. She believed she'd gotten approved for hardship deferment. My brother's credit card debt, the one maxed out at $18,000 that I'd paid off and continued to cover the $200 monthly payments on, he thought he'd gotten into a debt forgiveness program. Then there were the smaller things. Their cell phone family plan that I'd taken over, $340 a month for all of them. The health insurance supplemental coverage for my parents, $600 a month. My nephew's private school tuition assistance, $500 a month. The list went on. I opened my laptop and pulled up my spreadsheet. The total came to $5,780 every month. $69,360 a year. For 6 years. Over $400,000 that had quietly flowed from my accounts into theirs, keeping their lives stable while they judged mine. The decision crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. I opened my banking app and started canceling automatic payments. The mortgage payment was due in 3 days. I canceled the transfer. The car payment, due in a week. Canceled. The credit card autopay. Canceled. The phone bill, the insurance, the tuition assistance. Canceled, canceled, canceled. Each tap felt like cutting a rope that had been pulling me backward for years. My phone stayed silent for exactly 4 days. Then it started. Mom called 16 times the first day. I let each one go to voicemail. Her messages evolved from confused to angry to desperate. The mortgage company had called. They were confused about why the payment account had been closed. What did that mean? Had there been a mistake? My sister sent a long text asking if I knew anything about her car payment being rejected. The dealership had called threatening repossession. She tried to log into her account, but the automatic payment had failed. My brother's message was shorter, more direct. His credit card company had contacted him about a missed payment. He thought everything had been handled. What was going on? I responded to none of them. On day 6, my father called. He'd never been much of a phone person, so I knew things had escalated. I answered this time. He wanted to know if we could talk. I told him I was listening. He stumbled through an explanation about how Mom had been stressed lately, how she didn't mean what she'd said about Christmas. I asked him if she'd actually said she didn't mean it. The silence stretched long enough that I had my answer. He moved on to the financial questions. The mortgage company was threatening foreclosure. They claimed the account that had been paying the mortgage for years had been closed without notice. Did I know anything about that? I told him I knew everything about it. I'd been the one paying their mortgage for 4 years. And their phones. And covering my sister's car. And my brother's credit card. And about a dozen other expenses they'd never questioned because the bills simply got paid. The silence on his end was absolute. He finally asked why I'd never told them. I reminded him that I had, once, 3 years ago when my sister had made a comment about me having money to waste on my lifestyle while she struggled. I'd mentioned helping out where I could. Mom had told me they didn't need charity from someone who'd made such questionable life choices. So I'd stopped mentioning it. But I hadn't stopped paying. He asked why I was stopping now. I told him exactly what Mom had said. About my lifestyle being an embarrassment. About not being welcome at Christmas. I told him that I decided if my lifestyle was such a problem, I should probably redirect that embarrassing income toward my own embarrassing life. He tried to backtrack, saying Mom had been upset about something else, that the holidays made her emotional. I asked him to put her on the phone. He said she wasn't ready to talk. I told him that when she was ready to talk, she could call me herself. Then I hung up. The next 3 days brought a barrage of messages. My sister called crying, saying the car was essential for her job. I reminded her that I'd been covering that car for 2 years, and she'd never once thanked me because she didn't know. Now she knew. My brother sent angry texts calling me spiteful and petty. I responded with screenshots of every payment I'd made on his behalf, timestamped and dated. He stopped responding. Mom finally called on day 10. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I told her no, but she could say whatever she needed to say right now. She tried the emotional route first. How could I do this to the family? Did I know what position this put them in? I asked her if she'd known what position her words had put me in. She said I was being dramatic, that I was twisting what she'd meant. I told her I'd recorded the call and could replay it if she'd like. That shut that line down fast. She shifted tactics. This was about them being honest about my relationship, wasn't it? I was punishing them for their beliefs. I told her she was half right. I was done financing people who were embarrassed by me. If my lifestyle was such a problem, they were free to maintain their own lifestyles without my embarrassing contributions. She told me I was being cruel. I asked her if disinviting her son from Christmas after years of secretly keeping her house from foreclosure was kind. She said I'd never told them about the help. I reminded her of the conversation 3 years ago. She claimed that had been vague, that I'd never said specifics. I told her that was because she'd shut down the conversation by calling my life choices questionable. She finally got to what she'd actually called about. They were going to lose the house. I asked if she understood that I'd been paying the mortgage in full for 4 years. She'd been living in a house I was financing while telling me I wasn't welcome for the holidays. Did she grasp the irony? She asked what I wanted. An apology? Fine, she was sorry. She'd said things in anger. Could we please fix this before they lost everything? I told her I didn't want an apology extracted under financial pressure. That wasn't real. What I wanted was for them to understand that my life, my relationship, my choices had been subsidizing theirs for years. Every judgmental comment, every dismissive remark about my lifestyle had been funded by the money from that lifestyle. She said I was being unreasonable. Family helped family. I agreed completely. And when family decided someone wasn't family enough to share Christmas with, well, perhaps the help should be redirected to people who actually wanted me around. She started crying then, asking what she was supposed to do. I told her the same thing she'd told me 2 weeks earlier when I'd asked about Christmas plans. Okay, then I hung up. Update 1 asterisk. 3 weeks after stopping the payments, my aunt called. Not mom's sister, but dad's. She'd apparently heard the whole story from my father, who'd been trying to find someone, anyone, who could talk sense into me. She wanted to meet for lunch. I almost said no, but she'd been kind when I'd come out, had sent my boyfriend and me a card on our anniversary. So I agreed. We met at a bistro downtown. She didn't waste time with small talk. She told me she'd heard what happened, and while she understood I was hurt, destroying the family over one argument seemed extreme. I asked her if she knew the full scope of what I'd been covering. She admitted she didn't. So I showed her. I'd brought printouts of every transaction, every payment, every transfer. 6 years of financial support, itemized and dated. She went quiet as she reviewed the pages, her coffee getting cold. When she finally looked up, she asked why I'd never said anything. I told her the same thing I'd told everyone else. I had mentioned it once. The response had made it clear that help from me was charity they didn't want to acknowledge. She said that my parents were proud people. I told her that pride was expensive, and I was no longer interested in financing it. She tried another angle. Did I really want to be the person who let the family fall apart over this? I corrected her. I wasn't letting anything fall apart. It had already fallen apart the moment Mom decided my presence at Christmas was conditional on changing who I was. I was just no longer holding the pieces together with money. She asked what it would take to fix this. I told her the truth. A real apology, not one coerced by financial crisis. Acknowledgement of the years of support I'd provided. And an actual invitation to Christmas, extended because they wanted me there, not because they needed my bank account accessible. She said she'd talk to them. I told her she was welcome to try, but the payments weren't resuming regardless. That ship had sailed. Update 2 asterisk. Christmas came and went. I spent it with my boyfriend's family in Colorado, skiing, and actually enjoying the holiday for the first time in years. My phone stayed mostly silent except for one text from my sister on Christmas Eve asking if I was really going to let this continue. I responded asking if she was really going to let her parents' behavior continue unchallenged. She didn't reply. In January, the consequences started piling up in earnest. My parents' house went into foreclosure. They had 90 days to either pay the full amount due or negotiate with the bank. My sister's car was repossessed. My brother's credit score tanked from the missed payments. Dad called in February. He sounded exhausted. He told me they were going to lose the house. They tried to refinance, but without my income on the application, they didn't qualify. They were looking at apartments. I asked if Mom had anything she wanted to say. He put her on the phone. She told me she was sorry. The words sounded hollow, rehearsed. I asked what specifically she was sorry for. She said for what she'd said about Christmas. I asked about the rest of it. The years of comments about my lifestyle. The pointed silences when I brought my boyfriend around. The way she'd changed the subject whenever I talked about our life together. She said she'd been raised a certain way, that her beliefs were her beliefs. But she loved me. Wasn't that enough? I told her no, actually it wasn't. Love without respect wasn't love, it was obligation. And I was done living my life trying to earn respect from people who decided years ago I'd never have it. She asked what I wanted her to do. Throw away her values? I told her I didn't want her to do anything. I wanted her to understand that values that required her to reject her son were values I had no interest in subsidizing. She could keep her beliefs. I'd keep my money. Everyone would be fine. She said I was being vindictive. I told her I was being consistent. She'd made it clear where I stood in her priorities. I was simply adjusting my financial priorities to match. Dad took the phone back. He asked if there was any way to fix this. I asked him point blank if he'd stood up for me at any point during the past 2 years. When Mom made comments, when family gatherings got awkward, when my brother made jokes about my relationship, had he ever once told them to stop? His silence was answer enough. I told him I loved them both, but I was done setting myself on fire to keep them warm. They'd figure it out. People usually did when they actually had to face consequences. Update 3 asterisk. It's been 6 months now. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom apartment across town. They're managing, barely. My sister found a cheaper car. My brother's working on rebuilding his credit. The family dynamics have shifted in ways I don't think anyone expected. My aunt called last month to tell me that Mom had started seeing a therapist. Apparently, the loss of the house had triggered something, made her examine why she'd been so willing to blow up her relationship with me over something that didn't affect her life at all. The therapist had pointed out that she'd been financially dependent on the son she claimed to disapprove of, and maybe there was some cognitive dissonance there worth exploring. I told my aunt that was good, but therapy didn't change the past 6 years. She agreed, but asked if I'd be willing to consider rebuilding if Mom actually did the work. I told her I'd consider it if and when I saw genuine change, not just words motivated by wanting the money back. My sister reached out 2 weeks ago, not asking for anything, just talking. She apologized for not speaking up, for going along with Mom's attitude because it was easier than making waves. She said watching everything fall apart had made her realize how much I'd been holding together, not just financially, but emotionally. She'd been taking me for granted. I appreciated the apology. We've been texting occasionally. It's not the same as it was, but it's something. My brother hasn't reached out. I hear through my sister that he's still angry. Feels like I abandoned the family when they needed me most. The irony is apparently lost on him. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. From Mom. Handwritten, 6 pages long. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for anything except for me to read it. She wrote about growing up in a different time, about the beliefs she'd internalized without questioning, about how becoming a mother had made her protective in ways that manifested as control, about how watching her friends raise their children made her feel like she'd failed somehow when I came out, like people were judging her. She wrote about how the financial crisis had forced her to confront the fact that she'd built her comfortable life on the back of the son she'd been quietly rejecting. How she'd been so focused on what she thought was right that she'd missed what actually mattered. She wrote that she understood if I never wanted a relationship with her again, that she'd earned that. But she wanted me to know that she was working on herself, really working, not just going through the motions. And that if I ever decided I was willing to try again, she'd spend the rest of her life proving she'd changed. The letter is sitting on my desk. I've read it a dozen times. Part of me wants to believe it. Part of me remembers every dismissive comment, every awkward silence, every time I felt like I had to hide part of myself around my own family. My boyfriend asked what I'm going to do. I told him I don't know yet. He said that was fair, that I didn't owe anyone a timeline for forgiveness. I called my therapist. We've been working through a lot of this over the past months. She asked me what I wanted, if I removed all the external pressure and expectations. I realized I wanted proof. Not words, not promises, but actual sustained change over time. I wanted to see my mother choose me, actively and consistently, without financial motivation. I wanted to see her stand up to her friends, her church group, anyone who made comments. I wanted to see her introduce my boyfriend without hesitation or qualification. So I wrote back. I told her I'd received her letter, that I appreciated it, that I wasn't ready to resume a relationship yet, but that I'd be watching. If in a year she'd made the changes she claimed to be working on, if she'd proven through actions that she meant what she'd written, we could talk about slowly rebuilding. I told her the financial support wouldn't resume regardless of our relationship status, that needed to be separate. If we rebuilt something, it would be based on actual care and respect, not economic dependency. I told her I hoped she was serious about the work she was doing, because she'd get one chance at this. Just one. Her response came 3 days later. Just one line, I understand, and I'll prove it to you. I don't know if she will. I don't know if we'll ever get back what we lost, or if I even want that version of the relationship back. But I know I'm not going to light myself on fire anymore for people who won't even acknowledge the warmth. My boyfriend and I are looking at houses, somewhere with enough space for the life we're building together. No one gets to call it an embarrassment anymore. And if they do, they sure as hell won't be doing it from a house I'm paying for. The money I'm saving from not supporting my family has gone into investments, into our future, into the life we're creating. It feels good to build something for us, instead of propping up people who didn't want to admit I was holding them up. Maybe someday Mom will prove she's changed. Maybe we'll have Christmas together again, this time because everyone actually wants to be there. Maybe my sister and I will get back what we had. Maybe my brother will figure out that pride isn't worth destroying relationships over. Or maybe none of that happens. Maybe this is just how it is now. Either way, I'm finally putting myself first. And that doesn't feel embarrassing at all. It feels like the best decision I've ever made. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.